afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Hopefully you're here because we're going to be talking about AI today and how AI is becoming HR's new superpower when it comes to employee listening. And what we love the most is the fact that it's freeing up serious time, enabling you to really focus on the strategy. For those who don't know me already, my name is Smedley. I'm head of culture here at WorkBuzz, and I'm hosting today's webinar with my fabulous colleague, Rob Smith.
Thank you, Dawn. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
So this is our agenda for today. So hopefully that sets the expectation of what we're going to be walking you through. So we'll be starting off talking a little bit about WorkBuzz, who we are. We're going to get you, it will be recorded. Yep. So I will go through that in a sec. We want to hear from you. So we've got a couple of polls that we're going to roll throughout the webinar today. Rob's going to talk about the problem that we're solving for. I think we always start with the end in mind. What are we trying to solve for and how do we help you get there? And we'll be bringing to life how our people science AI works. We'll be talking about action planning made simple and then finishing with the ethical and effective use of AI in employee listening. And this is one of a series of three webinars that we're hosting, really bringing to life the difference that we're trying to make here at WorkBuzz. You're muted, but we do want to hear from you, so keep the chat coming. There will be a couple of polls, as we said, and this is being recorded, and we will send the slides in follow-up afterwards. So you can take notes, but absolutely we'll be following up with that afterwards. So we're going to start with just a really brief introduction to WorkBuzz in case you're not familiar with us and what we do. And then Rob, in particular, will be taking you through slides and a demo of the platform to bring to life that problem and how we're helping organizations get more from their employee listening programs. This is webinar one of a series of three, as I said. At the end, we'll signpost the two that are coming up over the coming weeks and the value that they can bring to the conversations that you might be having internally. But an introduction to WorkBuzz. We help organizations build impactful employee listening strategies. We're all about giving everyone a voice wherever they are and whatever they do. That comes front and center. We've designed the platform to be simple, flexible, and actionable. We know if we do this, people will keep coming back at all levels. What that gives you is the ability to surface insights and identify areas for improvement that really helps you with those business outcomes like retention, attracting new employees, and building a culture where every voice matters. And we really feel like we bring the best of both worlds. We are biased, of course, because we've got that simple technology, but with a super experienced in-house people science team to help our clients ask the right questions and really develop that strategy, not just tick a survey box. We work with amazing brands, some of which you can see on the screen, but really proud to work with some of them that you'll be familiar with, like Five Guys, Premier Foods, LKQ, Leonardo Hotels, and we do that in the UK and around the world. And we're super passionate about it. So hopefully that comes across today. So that's a little bit about us, what we do, who we work with, just to set the scene. And so you understand why we're here talking about engagement surveys and organizational change today. So let's start with a quick poll. So how mature is your organization's use of AI or automation in employee engagement surveys? So we've got some responses on the screen. If you can just click on the one that feels the most appropriate to you as to where you are right now. So it's how much are you using AI and automation in employee listening? So we'll just give it a couple of seconds. And then we will end the poll there. And what we're seeing is that we've got a third not using AI automation at all, so fully manual process. Some are exploring it and others that are unsure. So that is probably similar to what we're experiencing out there in the conversations that we're having. So Rob, we'll bring you into the conversation now. Why are traditional employee feedback methods no longer cutting it? And what does a more modern AI-powered approach look like in practice?
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, and I would say that's fairly typical when we speak to different companies across a range of different industries all around the UK and beyond. Not only are they all using different types of survey technology at different stages, different levels of maturity, but AI is a bit of an afterthought. And people that use an AI, there's all different kinds of stages that they're kind of adopting that, whether it's in just the survey technology or beyond, or as part of the HR management system. And I think it's all part of a wider shift we're seeing in how people do employee listening. So, I don't think we're going to change the way that people record responses to surveys, because you've got to have forms, you've got to understand people's feedback. But there's definitely a sense of fatigue. And I don't think it's, like I say, the formal or the technique, but I think it's the questions that people are asking, having those kind of unique questions that resonate with the organization, the tone of voice of the organization, that really engages people and enthuses them, and really gives you that direct feedback that links your organization. So certainly at WorkBuzz, what we do is we try to focus on how we really personalize the surveys to the organization and the individuals and even the roles within the organization, but with that consistency of survey approach. And then we take that data and we want to give it to people in the most simple format so they can understand it easily, act on it at speed, and so that employees can see that management's acting. That obviously drives that engagement and powers the organization and performance. And I think the bigger picture is that that's all linked to kind of what's happening in HR and organizations more generally, and some of that's linked to the economy. Organizations are having to change more frequently with technology and the economy, like I say. So with all that change, that puts a lot of pressure on HR teams. Not only they're doing their day jobs, but they're having to adapt to the kind of strategic plans of the organization. So we know they haven't got enough time. They're having to prioritize the things they do. They're having to act more quickly, and therefore, certainly when they look at engagement and partners, having the right partner can really take the load off. And if you've got the right partner with the right technology that allows you to act quicker, then it just gives you more time to focus on the right things. And like I said, I think it really also depends where you're coming from on the journey. And we speak to all kinds of organizations of different sizes, from 100-person organizations right up to the hundreds of thousands. And we see some clients that are still using a more of a manual process. So it could be something like Microsoft Forms or Google Forms, and that it's very admin heavy. They're having to crunch all those numbers, do the analysis themselves, push it out to things like Power BI or Excel. Or maybe they've got a very low cost survey platform. Maybe they're using something like SurveyMonkey, which is great, but again, it's very form-based, but it's more generic. It's not focused on engagement or best practice, and you still have to do a lot of the analysis. Maybe they've got a pure technology survey tool, which is focused more about engagement, but again, it's very much a tech platform, and it's not bringing in that kind of best practice around people science that really drives the organization forward. So they're having to make their own interpretations and act on it in their own way. And then, of course, we've got the big players, the really expensive ones that suck your budget away. So they're great. They've got all the bells and whistles. They'll allow you to do anything, but then you need a big team to manage them. You've probably got a lot of analysis, but then is it too much? And of course, the last one is there where you've got these dedicated consultancies. So you farm it all out. It's all outsourced. They probably do a good job, but you might be waiting on that information, waiting on that reporting, and it kind of slows down that whole speed to action. So with all of those approaches, AI has a role to play in terms of saving you time, giving you the simplicity, and probably the most important one is giving people a direct way to act on the information without having to spend the time on analysis. And yeah, the bigger picture as we see it, we call it this double-sided problem. So in the HR teams, they're at capacity already. They've got all kinds of priorities. They're having to manage stakeholders. They're having to help the people leaders on a kind of regular basis. And then those people leaders, team managers, departmental heads, they don't always know HR specifically. It's certainly not the front of their role. They want to focus on their day jobs. HR presenting with data, it's not always top of their priority. So the double-sided problem for us is that there's this kind of conflict and there's a massive gap, and that's what we try to solve in WorkBuzz with our AI tool, which is focused all around solving that problem. And this all stems from at WorkBuzz, the fact we came from an employee engagement consultancy background before we started making a technology platform, and therefore we have about 1 million hours of people science data on which we can use to correlate against people's survey results to provide automated insights that people can act on. And at WorkBuzz, that's what we call people science AI. So it's all about taking that information, analyzing the survey, and then giving a specific narrative to senior leaders or other people in the organization, like departmental heads, so they can act instantly, but without the background knowledge of engagement or HR.
And it'd be really interesting to know if that double-sided problem resonates with the people on the call today. I know often when we're talking about it, there's lots of nods around the room. So it'd be really interesting just if you can chuck in the chat if that does resonate with your world. Just to bring that to life, can you walk us through how the AI summaries work in practice and how do they save HR teams time? Wow, because I think what I've seen over the years, it's like, how do you surface the real issues and challenges? How does the people science AI do that?
Absolutely, Dawn. So the focus for us is on giving these creative summaries to the right people at the right time in a really efficient way. So we kind of segment it into these three areas. The first one, I think, is most important, and it probably feels back to front because you think you start with SLT and the exec level, but I think being able to give departmental leaders summaries of what's happening in terms of engagement in their teams, or line managers, it allows them to act instantly without any knowledge of HR or engagement, without the HR engagement team having to go around individually and spending time with those teams. So we provide departmental summaries for those line managers just based on the results of their team's survey, so they can understand it instantly in human language. Similarly, we then do the same at exec level. So for the entire organization, we give them a narrative around what's happened in the survey instantly, and this is all crunched in a matter of minutes. So pretty much after the survey closes, you can act on that survey and understand what's happened. And then the third one is all around sentiment analysis. So we use some clever tools to look at the kind of free text comments that people are making, understanding what's positive versus negative, and even go to the level of tagging that content against things that matter to you, like categories like DEI, leadership, growth, and those kind of things. So you can really focus in on the things that are important to you. And I thought I'd just quickly take you into the software and just show you what that means in reality. So this is our WorkBuzz platform, and as you can see, if I scroll down here, we can see that we can see our latest engagement score, we can see the trend over time, we can see the participation rate. And it's here, for example, where we'd be looking at overall scores in terms of how people have scored questions against averages of categories. We can go down to a final level of detail and look at each individual question. We can see how people have scored on a kind of red, amber, green, 100-point scale. What was the change since last time? What are the benchmark changes since, whichever benchmark we're being compared against? And traditionally, this is where people would spend their time investigating their hunches, looking at the things that are important to them. They'll know the things that matter to them in their organization and where they want to investigate what's happening around engagement. So you'd look at the questions overall for the entire organization, and then probably you'd use any one of the demographics on the left-hand side to filter down on things that matter to you, like, what's the generational divide? It could be, are they high potential talent? Obviously, location, role, full-time, part-time, and so on. All these demographics can be whatever you want. Or you could be doing it by function, department, sub-department, and so on. So you might, for example, want to look at age, and I'd probably come in here and I'd heat map that by choosing all the different categories of age, and I'd be able to then see a heat map. So I find something interesting, and with WorkBuzz, you can just go up to the reports and then push that out to Excel and PDF or PowerPoint. So that's how you create that pack for SLT or anyone interested, and that's how people have done it traditionally. Now imagine if you could do that all automatically, or rather it was done for you automatically. And that's what we do with the People Science AI. So if I log in as a leader, when it's 2 minutes after midnight when the survey closes, we can see these instantly curated AI summaries, and it's this section in the center called People Science AI. And you can see it's broken down into these different categories. So we've got a summary of the response rate, which is obviously participation, engagement scores, drivers of engagement, focus areas, and conclusion. So for each of these, what we've done, we've created our own human AI avatar that it's looking at what's happened in the survey, and then it's analyzing that data, and it's presenting the thoughts back to you as a people scientist would. This isn't just like a kind of chat GBT, analyze some data, show some high and low scores. It's far more intelligent than that. It's actually been configured by a people science team to deliver the summaries back to you as a people scientist. So you could go straight in, I want to see what's happening in terms of participation. You click on that first section, and not only do you get a text-based summary, but you get a video. So if I just click this quickly and give you a quick example.
Let me take you through a summary of your response rate. The survey achieved a high response rate of 86%. This level of participation inspires confidence in the data's representativeness, providing a solid foundation for understanding the overall employee experience.
Now, I won't play that all to you, and obviously, if you want to see this, anyone on the WorkBuzz team can show you in a demo and take you through the detail. But just to explain how these categories work, all of the data that's being crunched in there, through the algorithms and the AI that the WorkBuzz team have created, it's not just summarizing it; it's prioritizing the most relevant and high impact insights for you. So it's looking at trends across departments, demographics, benchmarks. Everything it shows you is actionable. So we know that the only thing it's going to show is where it has a measurable impact on engagement, or it's important. At the same time, it excludes all the noise by removing any data that doesn't have any kind of meaningful insight. So you're really focused on the things that are most important to you. So it's there to guide your decision making, and it's not just telling you interesting things and how you compare to benchmarks and demographics. It's also giving you these kind of thoughtful reflection questions based on what's happened in your individual survey. So it's quite intelligent, and it gives you a real high level of narrative. And the version we've got coming out in a few weeks, you can actually push these videos out to members of the team so they can see them automatically. And it's just a great way to instantly act on your survey and know what's happened without any of that analysis. Similarly, if I just look at an individual function now, like finance and legal, what I can do is use this to show you what it would look like from a departmental head's point of view. So you can see what we've done as well. We've changed the language just so it just kind of resonates a bit more with those people that might not be familiar with engagement and HR. Now it's saying, what will I get from my results? What's my response rate engagement scores? How is my team feeling? What has changed? And what are my recommended focus areas? So those line managers and people leaders can just come in straight away and find out what's happened for their team, deliver to them as a people scientist would.
So I think what always stands out for me is we assume that everyone has the same level of knowledge when it comes to looking at dashboards, and often when we don't know what to do, we do nothing. So what I love about this is it gets rid of that blank sheet of paper situation, doesn't it? It gives leaders
Absolutely.
a starting point, and we always want employee listening to be the start of a conversation. This isn't the end point. The summary isn't the end point. It's about contextualizing the results to enable leaders to go and have really good conversations with their teams and involve them in it. So one challenge we often hear is that, great, we've got this amazing data. Now what? So how does AI supported action planning really help busy managers take meaningful action?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of operate in the same way. We use the same algorithms and AI to accelerate that whole action planning process, Dawn. So if I just jump into another demo I've got here of how that might look. So let's imagine I'm a line manager or a departmental head. In this case, I'm the head of the finance department. I'm in my action planning view because the survey's been complete. I've looked at my departmental summaries. I've understood what's happened. And what, in traditional action planning tools, you might then sit down and take some time to think about how you then apply that to an action plan. What we want to do with WorkBuzz is really accelerate that whole thing and give them a head start. So you can see here, it looks like my finance department action plan is actually done already. That's what all these little individual goals are, with actions against them. And actually, I've done nothing so far. This has all been suggested to me by the AI algorithms based on what we know about impact on engagement, based on how my team has scored in the survey. So we're giving them a head start to create that action plan, and they can either then choose to go with it, or adapt it, or add to it, or create from scratch. And just to explain this screen here, you can see from our action plan, it's broken into two sections. At the top here, we've got one called Improve, which is obviously all about the things in the survey we've found where we want to make enhancements and put goals and actions in place to improve them. And down at the bottom as well, it's really important that we also celebrate the things that we've done well. So it's also drawing out the things that have gone really well in the survey. So for each of these, I could select them and move straight away. If I go to my focus areas, this is where we can see all those recommendations that were already made. And from here, we could manually create additional goals if I wanted to as well. But if I just go back to that front page, my action plan, if I like that first one, because I know it's a top recommendation, it's all based on verified people science, I can just accept that. And that's now jumped into my plan. It's already got an action associated with it because we've got our own action libraries in WorkBuzz that we've associated with all our best practice questions. And you can look at all of those, you can click on them, you can see what they say, you can edit them, you can add to them, you can even create your own custom action plans as well and add those in there. And then when you're happy with that and you want to put that into progress, you can say in progress, you can make it time bound, add a date as well. So we found that when people start using this, and first of all, you get that consistency across the entire organization. But we found that when action plans can be created in a matter of minutes, people will use it, and that's super handy because the main thing I found speaking to clients is that they probably are doing action planning, but maybe one department's doing it on Word, and others doing it in Excel. They can't get that visibility of how with the directing on the survey across the organization in a consistent way. When you do it this way and you make it easy, it then means that SLT, HR leaders can go into the reports here. They can see, how many goals are active versus non-active, how many people have got action plans and goals versus not, how many actions are overdue. And they can even go in and see every individual action plan. If I was a department head here, I could go and see each of my team and see what they're working on, and maybe use that as part of my one-to-one. So here's Dawn's. Let's see what Dawn's working on. I can see, the goal she set, and we could probably sort that through our one-to-one. So yeah, it gives you visibility, it gives you consistency. People can create custom action plans, but we're giving that a massive head start based on people science.
That's not a very good action plan for me because I would always have celebrate in there, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because that's how I come at the world. But and the library, I guess, just to go into that, it literally is built up to look at all different elements of the employee experience, right? So everything from rewards and recognition through to leadership. And I think when that's been built, it's about not expecting people to read a book again. This is about a starting point and giving them 3 things that might work really well. And I think, again, it's about not overwhelming people. And that goes back to our North Star, which is about creating technology that is simple, flexible, and actionable. Because we know if it is, people will keep coming back and using it. So thanks for bringing that to life for us, Rob. I'm always really interested in how this is playing out in real life. So what are some of the biggest wins you've seen when organizations use AI in employee listening? Have there been any examples that have surprised you?
Well, I love this because this is, being a bit of a techie. This is where it's great to see people, and particularly those that are maybe less tech savvy, get the tech in place and see the results instantly. So with the AI, the great thing about AI is that you don't need to know anything about technology to use it. And with WorkBuzz in our platform, we just make it so people can press a button and it works. So I think with the first one here, it's helping me be in more places at once. I've had a couple of great experiences now where we've shown the software, they've taken it on board, and people have just been, wow, it's doing my job. I used to have to go around every individual department. We'd have those big chats about engagement, helping them understand the framework, how we create the survey questions, what does it mean for their team. Now it just gives them that summary. This is what you need to focus on. This is what you need to improve. These are the things that were great. It goes straight into an action plan, and people are happy. And I think when I think about the time and cost that saves people, I can think of one healthcare provider where there was an engagement lead, and she said to me, in that quarter, she spent a third of her time on either administration around the survey, or particularly in terms of dealing with requests and support to those departmental leaders. So yeah, I think it's just instant, and people get it, and you don't need to know anything about it to use it. I think that's the first one. The second one is really interesting because, and I think this will evolve more over time, but I think, and it's not always the case, but I think in some cases, the person that's kind of in control of the survey or playing that back to different teams, they might have certain views and it might get skewed in different ways. So when you're using AI, which is completely independent and it's been verified by people scientists to look at it objectively, then you can really reduce bias. You get that neutral language. You get complete standardization across teams and departments. It's going to be summarized in a certain way. There's not going to be any skews in how people are curating those kind of insight packs for the board based on their own interpretation of what the issues are in the organization. Similarly with sentiment analysis, you could look at different comments and make your own judgments and try to be as fair as possible. But with AI, obviously, it's just doing it based on mathematics and a well-proven algorithm. I think there's a piece around, some voices are louder than others. So in terms of free text comments, it's got measures in place that can allow us to look at the free text and not put too much of a weighting on longer comments versus shorter comments. So it's making it fairer. And I think yeah, it allows you to make more inclusive decisions because you know that you can trust it to a greater level of degree than different humans could potentially. The third one, I think we just talked about that. So many clients now where we've put in place our action planning, they say to me, "Oops," they say to me, "Action planning is actually working." People are using it because they like it. It's simple, it's quick. We're giving them that head start, and because of that, they can now get visibility across the organization. It just means their whole engagement process is working faster, and they can raise engagement more quickly. And I think the fourth one there as well is related to what I showed with the AI summaries. I've had some great examples of where senior leaders are saying to me, um, we used to wait for the survey to close, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, we get a report from a supplier, and we then have to read through it and decide as an SLT team, what does it mean, and then think about plans. What I can do now is that after the survey closes, I literally watch the videos on the AI summaries while I'm eating my cornflakes, and I get that narrative straight away. And it just allows you to, maybe send out a tweet, an X message, something on the social comms in your organization, and it just shows you're listening straight away. You understand the narrative, and it gives you that head start. And I think the last one, yeah, we talked about that at the start, didn't we? When you can really empower departmental heads to have the information they need without that HR knowledge, they can act more quickly and they'll be more engaged. I think traditionally, even when you give them logins to engagement survey platforms, it relies on them to try and interpret the data, analyze it themselves, and that can turn them off. If you just give it to them on a plate where they can log in, find out straight away, I think they'll want to go back and do it again next time.
I think for me as well, it's consistency is such an important piece, isn't it, when it comes to even explaining what engagement scores are and what does impact on engagement mean. It means that you can take everyone on the same journey, explain it in the same way. So you have a real consistency and message that spreads out across the organization. Just on the reduction of bias thing, I think I've heard in calls that some companies are putting their survey results through ChatGPT, and obviously there is bias that exists there because it's untrained data. Can you just explain a little bit more about how we're able to reduce that bias and the environment that we're actually running the people science AI in?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously this is based over years and years of data that we train the models on in the first place. And then the great thing about WorkBuzz is that we've got a very strong, highly tenured people science team. So you don't start with an AI model and just say, right, here's some data and crunch it. You start with the philosophy around how you're going to deliver this in the first place as a people scientist. So way before we got to the point of designing the technology, we had to collaborate the tool and make sure that it was interpreting the data in the right way and it was coming out the right way. So it's all been verified by people scientists in terms of how we deliver that information. But AI is never a thing that stops, and it needs to be trained and monitored and evaluated frequently. So things like the ISO 27000 AI new certification that's coming up, that's something that WorkBuzz is going to gain pretty soon. Those kind of frameworks really help give that reliability about how these things work and that the right measures in place to ensure it's accurate.
Amazing. Okay, brilliant. So we're going to do another poll and hear from you quickly, if we may. So I am going to set this live. So how comfortable would you be allowing an AI to analyze your survey responses? So I'm going to, I think, launch that now. Is it live? No. Is it live?
Not yet.
Hang on. Hang on. Here we go. Right.
There we go.
So how comfortable are you with AI analyzing open-ended survey responses? So we've got 75% of you saying that you're somewhat comfortable, but are worried about misinterpretation, and 25% saying they're uncomfortable. Humans should handle qualitative data. How does that compare with what you're hearing out there, Rob?
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's a mixed bag. There's lots of people who still wouldn't trust AI at all. There's lots of people who don't know what it is or kind of how it works. And I'd also argue there's lots of different types of AI as well. And having worked for a few AI companies, I know that there's quite a few things that are called AI that aren't AI, and lots of things that people don't know are AI but actually are AI. So it's a real a mixture of different things and different ways to interpret it?
I think AI, there's so much out there at the moment and everyone's learning so fast, I think, about what it brings. So I think it's about, again, taking leaders on the journey as well, so they truly understand what it is, how it's trained, and what it's going to give them. I guess that leads us nicely into the last question. With AI moving so fast, how can HR leaders stay confident that they're using these tools ethically and effectively to build trust and drive real change?
Yeah, and this is becoming a really important topic now. As you said a minute ago, Dawn, it's everyone now has to look into this stuff, because when you're using these tools, there's all kinds of ramifications about how it's used, and also knowing how it's been designed and what it's going to do for you. So actually, we put a little QR code here. We did a couple of webinars on this recently that really just focus on this specific topic. So, best practice about AI adoption, the kind of things that HR leaders need to think about when considering AI. So they're really useful. You might want to look at those. Just more generally, though. And by the way, I think there's loads of resources now on the web, or you could use AI tool to look this kind of thing up, around how you use AI ethically and effectively. But these would be my kind of top 6 takeaways when you're thinking about adopting it in your surveys in the organization, because surveys can be quite a sensitive area and you want to get it right. It's all about comms and taking on people on the journey with you. So I think the first one is about absolute transparency. So where people think AI are going to be used, they might be nervous themselves. So I think you need to work with your supplier to understand, how are these summaries generated? What is the reasoning behind it? Is it a summary versus something a bit more sophisticated that is it's actually curated based on science? And can you therefore make decisions based off the back of it that you come forward with? So I think it's about keeping people involved, maybe things like employee forums, so they can understand how it's built and how it works, and maybe they have a look at it themselves. And certainly at WorkBuzz, we give things like best practice guides and information that you can share with your employees to really reassure them. The second one is an obvious one, all around data privacy and security. I think certainly a lot of the bigger companies now are having their own AI teams, chief AI officers that will look at this kind of stuff. But there's all kind of guidelines. You want to look at data privacy and security. You want suppliers that are GDPR certified, and you want to look at that new ISO certification. Is that something they're going to aspire to and have on board? Have they got a plan in place to meet that? I think, yeah. Well, I talked about involving employees in the process. Excuse me. There's a whole piece around them understanding the clarity, the accuracy, and the fairness of the insights. I think, yeah, it's really nice if you can give them an overview of the data that goes in and the data comes out, and the kind of the structured breakdown of the reporting that they get at the back end of it. And I think that leads on to the fourth one, which is where AI is not the be all and end all. It's always got to be about human judgment. And I think there's a certain piece of coaching around how you help people to make decisions using AI as that kind of guide, but it not being the be all and end all. And again, that's something we do in WorkBuzz. We talk about how you make those judgments, you use it to support decisions, use it as a conversation starter, but not making the final verdict. And then I think, we talked about a second ago, certainly at WorkBuzz, we're always looking at how we improve the AI. We're always evaluating its effectiveness. We look at all the summaries that are created by our clients and we measure them. We have our people scientists look at them. But I think you can do some of that internally as well. You can track the effective, what you think the effectiveness of the surveys are, or sorry, the summaries that are coming from the surveys. Look at different groups, how are different people being mentioned, and if whichever supplier you're using, feed that back. And just keep that continuous development loop. And then the last one, the AI should completely, move along the lines of what you're doing as an organization. So always start with your strategy. And again, that's how we build our surveys. But, what are you focused on? Is it inclusion? Is it well-being and fairness? How's AI going to look at those things? How do you want to frame the conversation around those particular topics that are important to you?
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob. So that is bringing us to the end of the webinar, really. And our intention today really was to start with the problem that we're solving for and how we developed people science AI to act as that bridge between HR and people leaders at all levels of the organization. We really wanted to give you a high level intro into those AI powered summaries. Sometimes it's best to see these things in action. So you can see what we're talking about, and also the action planning tools, and how when we can simplify that and actually guide leaders to suggested actions that are going to help them move the needle on the factors that are going to impact on your engagement score the most, it's a super powerful starting point. Surfacing those critical feedback themes has always been the biggest challenge with employee surveys, and I'm sure you've all been there, where there's the frustration around what you're trying to get action planning happening, the you said we did thing, and a year down the line, nothing really having changed, or lots of things having changed, but no one really understanding that it was done on the back of the surveys. So we're trying to really make sure that what we continue to do here at WorkBuzz and innovate for is making sure that we continue to solve those problems that we keep hearing across organizations, across all sectors and all sizes, and really equip managers. I think the future of employee listening is really about manager empowerment. It's how you enable them to have better conversations, a better starting point to really drive that change, and upskill people leaders to have better conversations. And that's what the people science AI summaries really give them, is that interpretation of the data without having to have a physical people scientist in front of them presenting to them as well. So hopefully we've got all of that across today. Hopefully it's been informative for you, and it's given you some learnings that you may not have been exposed to before. And we just wanted to touch on the fact that there are 2 other webinars coming up in this series. On the 25th of June, I'll be joined by Rai, who's our Director of People Science, and he is super inspiring, and we'll really be talking about asking better questions as part of your employee listening strategy, and how we're bringing in more behaviour-based questions in the way that we enable companies to set themselves up for success, and their leaders in terms of that, really supporting leadership development programs. So that's a really good one. And then on the 16th of July, I'm going to be joined by Nick Searing, who's the head of internal comms at Butlins, and he's fabulous. And we're going to be talking about the journey that they've been on. They've got a really hard to reach demographic. So it's not just about how you ask the right questions, it's how you reach people, it's how you take leaders on that journey, and some of their early learnings and findings in terms of what they've discovered on the way. And the fact that Nick works in internal comms, he's got a different lens on it as well, in terms of how he's worked extensively to really get the word out on the street about their new employee listening strategy and the impact that it's going to have. So this was part 1. Part 2 and part 3 are going to be very different, but bringing together kind of what we think are our differentiators when it comes to employee listening. But we'll be following up with the slides. We'll follow up with the recording. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. I know lots of people are at the Festival of Work this afternoon, so if you're listening afterwards in the recording, then we hope you enjoyed it too. But a big thank you from myself and Rob, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.